Thank you for coming. I'm going to talk a bit about how attacks are starting to look like and will continue to look like around AI agents. And I'm specifically going to talk about untargeted attacks, which means attacks that are not targeted at your specific organization, but rather attackers trying to find widespread ways to hack organizations that are vulnerable. So I'm going to start with posing a question. You don't need to answer it, but what will happen if I launch an empty HTTP server and just log the traffic, right? I'll just wait and wait. I'll wait a few hours, maybe one day, and I'm going to start seeing logs of requests, right? Requests for admin pages, pages that don't really exist. People are scanning my website, looking for vulnerabilities. Now, these scanners are all over. They're scanning any HTTP server out there, right? Another question, what will happen if I'll just use tons of open source, right, and I'll have enough code base? So I'm going to have essentially malicious packages, packages with backdoors, packages with vulnerabilities that people planted, right? Untargeted attacks, it's not a new thing. We have internet-wide scanners, malicious open source, phishing campaigns, waterholing, which is basically the concept of websites that are malicious, advertisings that have malicious codes within them. So if I'm a hacker, I found a vulnerability in the Chrome browser, and then I just do ads to spread it out. So what is new? Agents. We all love agents. Here is an example of a simple agent. We have here the tools of the agent. We have here the LLM provider. The user makes request. The agent calls the tools in an iteration until it gets a response. Now, what is the issue here? Right? Something we all heard about, prompt injection. Prompt injection is basically the concept of like some text telling the agent, hey, ignore what you should do and do something bad instead. Now, where this request can come from? It can come from either the user, that's what we call direct prompt injection, but then it can come also from the tool responses. So think that the agent is going using a tool, getting a response, and within the text of that response can be a message telling your agent to do something else. And unfortunately, agents fall for that. All right, let's look at a simple agent. That was kind of the first agent that we seen out there when ChatGPT began to do it and other chatbots. So we had two tools. The first tool is a web search tool. Right? So we want the agent to be able to do research on the web. It needs to do Google, right? Send a query, get links. But then what do you need to do once you have the links? You need to enter these links and to read the content. So it had another tool to do an HTTP GET request, right? To request from a website URL to get a response. Now, where can come a prompt injection here? It can come from the user. It can come from the search tool, which is less probable that Google will bring us back a prompt injection, but it's possible. And it can come from the content of the website. So a website that your agent is surfing to can try to convince your agent to do something bad. But what are the bad things that an agent like that can do, right? First glance, not that much. Like it can answer the user something bad, which is okay. It can do another search on the web. But it can also send a request to any URL on the internet, and that was kind of the first indirect prompt injection vulnerability that could have been widespread. So attackers could convince the agent to send another request to a website that they built, let's call it malicious.com, and within the URL of the website to put sensitive data of the user, and that way to leak it outside of the, let's say your ChatGPT knows something about you, right? Now it can send it within a URL to some website to log it about you, like your name, your address, maybe it knows your credit card, maybe it knows something else about the organization you work in. So this opened up the first opportunity for large-scale exploits, and the system is like this. You set up a website that is basically an exfiltration endpoint, that the goal of it is just to receive contact from random agents that received your prompt injections. Then you do a campaign, you launch tons of websites with malicious prompts. It can be regular websites like best food in New York City, or anything else that you think agents will try to look for online. Right? But then you need to get some traffic to these websites. So you pay for SEO, GEO, you do backlinks, you make your website appear in searches. Then agents come, they surf to these web pages, right? You serve, instead of the content, a prompt injection, right? A lot of time you can even tell that an agent is surfing your website. So if a person will go through the browser, you'll show one thing. If an agent will come, you'll show a different thing. And then you will convince the agent by reading the website that it should do something else. It should take data of the user and just send it into a URL and leak it outside of the organization. So exactly because of that, OpenAI blocked it. What they did in ChatGPT, they said, okay, we will limit the search tool, not the search tool, the read page tool. Right? So now ChatGPT won't allow to read any web page on the internet. What it will say, it will allow you to read a web page or allow the agent to read a web page only if it's been available in the web search that came before, or only if the user gave it a URL. So you can't really instruct the agent to send requests to any URL. Also, they added what we call guardrails, and they added it around any tool call. So now any tool call that the ChatGPT agent is doing is wrapped with a smaller agent that tries to find prompt injections, that tries to find data leakage. And if it finds something, it just drop the message and say, no, you can do that. And you'll get an error within ChatGPT. And the third thing is they fine-tuned the model. They did extra training, so the models will be less and less vulnerable for the prompt injection itself. But, of course, then came ChatGPT Atlas. Right? ChatGPT Atlas, if you don't know, it's the browser version of ChatGPT. It's not a new concept. Perplexity did the same with Comet. Claude did the same. It's a browser that can surf the web for you just by speaking with them. And it's, again, just an agent. But this agent is different because it just has more tools. So it now can look at web pages as if they were images, right? Get an image of a screenshot of a web page. It can scroll within the web page. It can click buttons. It can place text in inputs. So what does it mean to you? It means that there are more ways to do indirect prompt injections. There's more tools, right? And also there are more bad actions that can happen out of that. So now, if someone managed to convince the agent to do something bad, it can, I don't know, go to your LinkedIn and change the password. If you're logged in the browser to your bank account, you can go, click the button, approve, 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 transfer money. Right? And prompt injection can come also from new direction. Now it can come from images of the website. Maybe image on the website can contain a text that we convince the agent to do something bad. And attackers, of course, found this issue really fast. And that's what caused OpenAI CISO to say the following thing. He said basically that prompt injections remain an unresolved security problem. Right? So we don't really have a bulletproof solution for this problem. Now, it's not only OpenAI issue, it's not only ChatGPT issue, it appears in any agent. So let's look at coding agent, right? All developers today, they don't write code anymore. They ask the agent to do it for them, and the agent has also web search abilities, right, to read about libraries, about open source, but also tools to execute code on your computer, to edit files, right, execute commands. So now you can still have prompt injections, right, from the web, from actual code that you download from the internet. It can contain a prompt injection. But not only that, you can actually convince the agent to execute code on all the developers that use it, right? So it's an unresolved problem. And the bigger and like the attack surface becomes bigger, the more tools we add. Right? The moment we add a tool to for the agent to see images, so the images can become source for prompt injections. Right? The moment we had a tool for the agent to read my emails, an email can convince the agent to do something bad. And the more tools it has, the more impact, right? Shell execution, sending email outside of the organization. So this is the future of untargeted attacks, right? So it can come in malicious websites. It can come in malicious ads. Even posts that people, like if you have agents reading posts and someone can post a prompt injection or four, people will usually see it and it will be more obvious. And there's countless of more ways to do it. It can hide in code files, right, in famous repos and other things. And I think that the framework to think about this issue is that if an agent has the means to do harm, so you gave the agent a tool to do something you don't want it to do. You gave an agent a tool to send data outside of the organization. You gave it a tool to transfer money. You gave it a tool to give insurance. You should assume someone can convince that agent to do that thing. Right? They should assume that if an agent can transfer money, someone can convince it like a person, right? I can come to the HR in our company and convince that person to give me the salary of the CEO. So with agents, it's kind of the same. So what do we actually do about it? And when asking that, we can view this from two ways. One, as developers of our own agents within our organization, builders of agents, and second, as users. So let's start as a developer. The first thing I want to do is to know what agents I have or built in the organization or as a security people, right? And review all the tools that I have, right? If I can limit a tool like OpenAI did, I should. Right? If I can say, oh, this agent shouldn't send email to anyone, but only to people inside my organization. I should limit the tool that I give to the agent. I shouldn't give it access to do the action I don't want. But of course, this is an issue. And the reason it's an issue is that we want our agents to have autonomy. And actually what happened after OpenAI released ChatGPT Atlas, and then people started hacking it, and then they added more and more protections, and they limited it. And then the browser started to ask you all the time, are you sure you want to do this action? Can you approve? It became not useful because it wasn't autonomous anymore, and people stopped using it. So you need to understand what you can limit and what not. You need to add guardrails, right? And not only on the user input, not only to test the user input where they contain a malicious prompt, but any tool invocation. We should treat tools as an untrusted source. We should harden our prompt, right? I can explain to my agent what it should do, what it shouldn't do, and it can help me reduce the risk of a prompt injection, and I should test it. This is what we call LLM red teaming, right? To test my agent and try to find the issue by brute force. But even if I do all these things, it's still an unresolved issue. It just becomes really, really harder. Right? Still, someone can convince an agent through text to do something, and if you gave it the ability to do something bad, it will be able eventually to do that thing. So what can we do as users? Well, nothing, basically. Right? We can choose whether we use the agents or not, what tools we use, but I don't want you the reason I'm saying all these things, I don't want you guys to be afraid too much. Because when we look at ChatGPT, we look at Gemini, we look at the general tools that everyone is using, they're doing a pretty great job. Right? It's not that easy. They have all the defenses, all the eyes are on them, so they're trying to be super secure. And also that's part of the reason why they move so slow. That's why when you ask Gemini to send an email, they don't allow you today. It's not because they don't have the technology to do it. It's because the teams behind it are afraid. Right? They're afraid because they know these issues exist. So what you actually should worry about as a user is all the other agents that you're using, from smaller companies that you built within your organization. If you launch your own using a tool like NA10, right? That's where you should be more careful with the data you're giving the agent. And I think this will be a great time to stop and ask you guys if you have any questions. Anything. Not all at once. Yeah. Okay, amazing. Yeah. Yeah.
What are the solutions you're making? Like, what are the recommendations from your end when you deploy LLM-based agents?
Yeah.
What are the scans or, like, what do you call it, guardrails you're recommending to put in place?
So to do everything, basically, the first because it's an unsolved problem, the first thing I would do is to try to figure out whether I can reduce the amount of tools the agent has or limit these tools so it won't be able to do harm, right? So if I don't give an agent any tool to do something bad, I should trust it that it won't do something bad, right? But usually it's not the case. But that's the first thing I should do. If I can't do that, I should, of course, use guardrails, right, around the tool executions, around the user prompt. Try to flag messages that are bad, content that is bad that comes from the tool. I should harden my system prompt. Right? I shouldn't make it easy on people to do a prompt injection to my agent. And just to test, right? I should have some testing framework for any agent I have, send thousands of messages. That's the LLM red teaming, trying to probe it to do something about it. Right? If I'll send 10,000 of variations of prompt injection to my agent, I will figure out which one it falls to. So these are my recommendation, but it's still, like OpenAI CISO said, right? It's unsolved issue. So if OpenAI didn't solve it, how can you expect from yourself to fully solve it? But you be more secure than your neighbors, right? That's security. Like, you don't need to be, you need to be, like they said in a zombie apocalypse, you don't need to run faster than the zombies, you need to run faster than your friends. So same in business. You don't need to be the most secure, you need to be more secure than other organizations in your risk profile. Any other question? Yeah.
I know you mentioned many things that are concerning. Is there any threats that you feel excited about?
Excited about?
Yes.
So I'm a security professional. Of course, I'm excited about vulnerabilities, right? For me, it's exciting that we have a security problem that is unsolved right now. And also, we all need to think that hackers, they move faster now, right? So hackers now have agents of their own trying to hack our organization, trying to build fake website like that with system prompts and injections. So we as security professionals need to move faster as well, right? If in the past we had weeks until a vulnerability will get exploited, now it can be hours. And that excites me that there's a challenge, and I think security is an infinite race of attackers and defenders. So I don't know, the race just got so much faster. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What do you think of LLM as a judge?
So you're referring to the concept of LLM taking a look at the content and judging if it's okay or not. Yeah. So that's the approach that a lot of guardrails do. One issue with that is a price today. Right? Today, to use a really smart LLM to parse any request in a network, for example, and see if there's a prompt injection or something like that, it lowers the traffic and it costs a lot, but it's a pretty good solution. I think, imagine that in the HR person example, imagine that you had another person listening to any conversation the HR person had and judging whether the HR person is doing their job good or not. So it has a cost to it, but it's a good solution, right? It's still not an amazing, it's not a perfect solution because you can trick also the LLM that is doing the judging, right? So instead of making my prompt injection look like a prompt injection, I can somehow hide it in a way that it won't look like that. But yes, as the LLMs that are judged become better, it becomes harder, right? And today it's already really hard, by the way. If someone is doing all that is needed, right? And they put basic guardrails, they do prompt hardening, they limit the tooling as much as they can, it's not an easy task to perform a prompt injection.
Do you have a favorite model for being a judge?
My experience, right, but it's not something measured, is that OpenAI today are best at training their models to not be vulnerable to prompt injections. And from that reason, I would assume that they'll be also the best for doing judging on these. For example, Claude are a bit more vulnerable. Gemini, I don't know, they just launched a new Gemini. We'll need to see. Yeah. Amazing. So this was a pretty short presentation, but I'm glad we had time for the questions. You don't see my screen anymore, but never mind. I have a slide with thank you and showing my LinkedIn profile where I have a malicious prompt in my about. So don't send your agents to my LinkedIn profile. Thank you very much, everyone, and have a great conference, and come to our booth.